What's the worst advice you've ever received in your life? Story 1. Take out your money. Money isn't for saving, you have to spend it. My dad, upon finding out I'd secretly saved some cash from selling drawings and doing commissions. Basically, he had plans for something and needed money, saw I had some and wanted it. Story 2. The worst advice I got was to use an invisibility potion when fighting the warden so it wouldn't detect me. Story 3. You know, son, cheating doesn't really exist if you're not married. The Bible doesn't recognize any relationship that's not under the Lord's covenant. So until you're married, the relationship didn't really exist. Thanks, Dad. You indirectly explained why you're on your third marriage. Story 4. My ex was helping me rearrange my room and asked, "Do you use that printer?" I said not right now because it was out of ink and I hadn't had any homework. She said, "Throw it away." Story 5. Stop reading. You read too much. You'll hurt your eyes. Go watch TV for a while. My grandma, every time she visited, while snatching books from my hands. It was like something out of The Simpsons. Story 6. In high school, I had a friend who wasn't the brightest. He told me that if you don't want to get a woman pregnant, she should be on top so the sperm can't flow down. He became a dad in his sophomore year. Story 7. If you don't do it right, don't do it at all. This screwed up my entire existence. Story 8. Note, the following story may not be real, but I wanted to include it in the video. The worst advice I got: if you're going to rob a bank, do it in camouflage clothing. No one will see you because you're camouflaged, and you can rob the money in peace. A neighborhood buddy gave me this. He's famous for getting anything you ask for in exchange for collectible coins. 3 days later, they arrested him for doing exactly what he advised, trying to rob a bank in camouflage. They obviously caught him. In court, when asked why he was so calm and slow during the robbery, he explained his theory about camouflage making you invisible in the environment. Needless to say, the judge and cops were dying of laughter. Story 9. My classmates were seriously talking about cutting off their dicks because otherwise they might become fathers. Story 10. Once a year doesn't hurt. My friend who's failing every subject has no retake rights and has no idea he's about to repeat 8th grade. Again. Story 11. A classmate once told me to put toothpaste on my pimples and not go out in the sun afterward. Acne was the worst of all my insecurities. In desperation, I didn't research it. I applied it and left it on overnight. Surprise! Chemical burns on my skin. Story 12. When I was in high school, about 16, my mother-in-law suggested I drop out and get pregnant with her son so she could take care of the baby. My ex's family, I cut those people off. Story 13. I was working as a waiter at a talk area and overheard 2 customers talking. One said his little daughter's teeth were getting cavities from drinking too much soda. The other replied, "If you're going to give her soda, make sure it's not dark-colored like Coke. The black color is what causes cavities." Story 14. Getting a partner will cure your sadness. No, if you can't love yourself as you are with your strengths and flaws, you won't be able to maintain a relationship. Yes, we're social beings and being alone causes sadness, but you have to love yourself first. Only then will you be ready for a relationship. Story 15. As an aspiring teacher, I got terrifying advice from well-meaning but completely misguided people about how teachers should run a classroom. The most memorable was from a woman who'd been a special ed teacher for years. Never apologize to a student and never admit you're wrong. My teaching philosophy couldn't be more opposite. Story 16. Kick it to see if there are more bees inside. There were still a lot of bees inside. Story 17. In 3rd grade, all the boys in class bullied me for not being from Sonora, not having the same accent, etc. When I talked to my grandma on the phone, she'd say, "Pray for them, Mijo." "Sure, Grandma, I'll pray for them right before they break my leg the next day." Story 18. My mom has asthma and one lung that's almost useless for other reasons. She's studying nursing, and a classmate in the same program told her that smoking would improve her asthma because it would create a protective layer in the lung. Story 19. When I was little, I told my mom I was sad because some kids were bullying me. She said I should tell them that it hurt me inside and ask them to stop. I did what she said. It was bad advice. They didn't stop. Story 20. My high school guidance counselor said I wasn't college material. I followed his advice and started the process to join the Marines with my friends, who were told the same thing. My chemistry teacher scheduled a substitute, personally drove me to a nearby university, and sat with me while I talked to admissions. Years later, after earning dual degrees in chemistry and chemical engineering and a PhD in chemical engineering, I'd say that counselor didn't know anything. Story 21. I have an open door policy, so feel free to come see me if you have any issues. I learned the hard way never to trust any boss or HR rep who says that crap. Open door policies are a great way to get fired for being a troublemaker. Story 22. When I found out I was pregnant with my youngest, my mom and her boyfriend told me not to have the baby, not because I couldn't afford it or anything was wrong, but because my mom was going through menopause and didn't want to be reminded she couldn't have more kids. Story 23. In my final semester of college, my insanely jealous and bitter mother called with one last plea for me to drop out. She went on, "What would you do if you had to watch helplessly as your own daughter threw her life away and became a nurse?" By the way, she married a grade school dropout and was a miserable retail worker. She couldn't stand seeing me be the first in the family to graduate college and make something of myself. She dealt with it by constantly shaming me. If I got 99% on something, she'd complain about the missing 1%. If I got 100%, she'd say I was stupid for not getting bonus points. We don't speak anymore, and I'm a successful nurse. Story 24. A friend of mine always made me talk about my relationships and somehow twisted the smallest things to make them seem really bad. Then he'd suggest I should break up with my partner, and I'd think, "You're right. Why am I putting up with this?" when it could have been completely normal. This happened with 3 girlfriends in a row, always the same script. One day I woke up and realized I'd been the bad boyfriend. The reason it didn't work was how I acted after all that stuff got planted in my head. I think he was just jealous because he could never get girls. Story 25. I'm a salaried engineer, married with a kid, a master's degree, and several years of experience. The company VP advised me to work at McDonald's after hours if I wanted to earn more money. He even pulled out his calculator and told me how many hours I needed to work. Story 26. This isn't me personally, but my mom told me. We had a neighbor who constantly told my dad that life insurance was a waste of money and tried to convince him to cancel it. Luckily, my dad was smart. He died 5 years later, and our family would have been completely destroyed without it. Story 27. In 1984, a friend's mom told me computers were a passing fad and I shouldn't major in computer science in college. I ignored that advice. It was obviously insane even back then. Story 28. If someone is mean to you, it's because they like you. Can people stop telling kids this? I believed it too. Yeah, maybe it's true sometimes, but most of the time it's not. Especially after age 7. Story 29. I was 19 and thinking about college or a finance job. My friend's mom said, "No, don't do that. You know where the real money is. Retail. Working in stores." Story 30. Let it pinch you. It won't hurt as much. It was the biggest crawfish I'd ever seen. I was about 10 and fishing with my dad. He didn't think I'd be dumb enough to do it, but I wanted to impress him. Chaos ensued. I picked it up and let it pinch the soft skin between my thumb and finger. I screamed in pain. Dad cracked up laughing and tried to help, only to get pinched by the other claw on the back of his hand. This pinching cycle continued as we tried to help each other. Finally, we got it off. Dad told me to throw it back, so I hurled it as hard as I could into the lake.